of Cape Town, with site visits to Gugulethu, Danun, Khayelitsha, and Philippi. The program will conclude with a high-level debate in the NCOP. Catch us live across Parliament's platforms from 16 to 19 September and follow us on our social media platforms using the handle @Parliament of RSA and visit our website www.parliament.gov.za for more information. Your Parliament, your voice, your future.
Welcome back to Parliament TV, your premium destination for live coverage of parliamentary events and sittings. And welcome to our wrap-up show of the Local Government Week 2025, right here on Parliament TV. Libito Kitsepo Mori.
And we are broadcasting live from the Parliamentary Precinct on this Friday afternoon at the official adjournment of the 2025 Local Government Week.
Of course, this year's gathering was convened under the powerful and poignant theme, restoring the dignity of our people through spatial planning, provision of human settlements, and water and sanitation. A theme that goes to the very heart of constitutional rights and daily lived experiences.
And for 5 days, this house has been a hive of activity, from robust policy debates in this chamber to intense on-the-ground oversight visits, where delegates witnessed firsthand the state of housing, water, and sanitation in our communities.
And now, the critical question is, after the deliberations, after the site visits, and after the plenary discussions, what is the way forward? How do we move from diagnosis to delivery?
Exactly, Tsepo. And today is about accountability and action. We will get reactions and break down what the NCOP's action plan means for restoring the dignity of our people. Please stay with us.
Today we visited the construction site at Delft, and what we found here today was that there's a lot of work that is going on. This construction site has been plagued with many difficulties over the years. We were told the issues of extortion, the high levels of crime, as well as unfortunately one of the site managers was killed, and therefore the entire project was stalled over the years. But what I'm seeing now is that the entire site has been fenced with security fencing as well as electrical fencing, and that has stopped the issues of criminality on the site. It is exciting to know that there is the underground structures are now being done, the piping for water and sanitation, as well as the stormwater drainage. All of that is taking place, and by June next year that will be completed, and the top structures will then start for 500 homes. Now that is very, very interesting, because we will now hold the contractor to account for that to happen. That is part of our oversight, as well as we were happy that today we had the MMC here, as well as a ward councillor and community leaders who made very valuable input, and they were able to answer questions that came from honourable members as well as from community leaders. And I think with that sort of mindset, we will be able to see that this project does benefit the communities of Bleckiesdorp as well as Delft and the surrounding areas. And this project will also provide job opportunities for the airport construction that's going to be taking place, because people living here can find jobs on that construction site also. So there'll be all-round benefits, and we're hoping that there will be no new additions of criminality coming in and stalling this project further. I am confident that it will see completion in good time.
Your Parliament, your voice, your future.
As the National Council of Provinces adjourns its 2025 Local Government Week, the critical question shifts from what was discussed to what will be done. And to help us reflect on the outcomes and chart the way forward, we are now joined by the Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces. Deputy Chairperson, thank you very much for making time to speak to us and following this hectic, busy week. But to kickstart this conversation, that if you can just talk to us, because we understand that you are the guardian of cooperative governance, and we've seen this week bringing all three spheres of government together. Now, given the worrying picture that's been painted by the recent Ages report, what would you define as a single most important outcome that emerged from these gatherings?
Thank you very much, Tim Nkosi, for this opportunity. This past week has been a real eye-opener for us. You know, although we tend to think that we understand what is happening in the communities out there, but when we go on site and get a first-hand view of what is happening, sometimes it is very shocking, because you know this oversight week was for us as members of Parliament from all three spheres of government to be on site, to have a look at the various projects that have been planned, projects that have been budgeted for. And to see whether there is progress, because we want to see that people benefit from the projects. Now, unfortunately, what we found is firstly that we did not have representatives from the local government sphere. Neither was there representation from the provincial sphere. Now, we expected that these two spheres of government would be on site with us to be able to give us a briefing of what is happening on those sites and in terms of progress. Now,
I really apologize for interfering, but I want us to clarify this. You're talking about not a representation of a local sphere and a provincial sphere not being there. Who would you be referring to?
Well, we are talking about councillors from local government, because councillors are at the coalface of service delivery. They know exactly what is happening. Well, they should know what is happening. So, for example, we went out there to look at spatial planning, the provision of water, sanitation, and housing. Now, the committees that sit at local government level and at provincial level dealing with those aspects should have been there to say to us, this is the project, this is when it started, this is the budget for it, this is how long it's going to take to be completed, and who the beneficiaries are going to be for those houses that will be built. Now, that is something that we did not get. Now, the other thing that we found very shocking was the high levels of criminality, the high levels of crime, where, projects are being stopped by the so-called mafia, extortionists that go on site and try to extortion money from contractors, from service providers, to the extent that many of the contractors abandon their sites out of fear. And on the site that I went to in Dunoon, there was an official who was killed on site. That is the extent of criminality. And the site that we went to yesterday in Delft, although there's a lot of work taking place, but that entire site had to be fenced off with electric fencing to ensure the safety of that site and the people that are working on that site. Now, with that level of criminality, how do we expect government to provide services to our people? Now, that is a major challenge. And in the presentations that were done earlier today, that point was driven home, that we need to strengthen the safety and security of those sites, of the people that are working on those sites, to ensure that we do meet our objectives of providing decent housing for the people of our country.
Now, when you addressed the House on Tuesday, when you made your first address on this local government week, you laid out some expectations of the House. And now that the week has concluded, what is then the NCOP's immediate next step to ensure that the robust alignment and committee reports translate into tangible, actionable solutions for municipalities rather than just remaining a talk?
Well, what will happen from now is that the entire report will be consolidated. The report will then be shared amongst all role players, including SALGA. The report will then be tabled in the House and it will be debated. And that report will then be handed over to the House Chair of Committees so that the various committees within the NCOP and in Parliament will then take their relevant aspects out of that report and express it in the various portfolio committees, so that the portfolio committees will then go to those departments, the relevant departments, to ensure that they get answers in terms of why wasn't this project completed on time? Where's the budget for this? In some cases, we heard that monies have been spent, but who's conducting oversight? Now remember that the portfolio committees have got the power of oversight. They can go onto these projects and conduct oversight, as well as local government. The city itself needs to go onto these sites because the city will be tasked to provide water, sanitation, and so on. So they need to know exactly what is going on. And this brings me back to the issue of the three-sphere planning. You'll remember that last year in October, one of the first things that we did as the seventh dispensation in the NCOP, we held the three-sphere planning session. And we expected that the three-sphere planning will then find resonance on the ground. But unfortunately, what we saw during this week was that was not happening. The three spheres were not talking to each other.
Which is my main worry. Like you have indicated when you started with these interviews, the absence of the local and provincial representatives on how then will they be able to implement some of the recommendations that will come with the report if they were not even there when you did these site visits, and to hear firsthand some of the information that you just shared with me now, like the site where a contractor was killed and that led to the project being stalled. So how are you going to deal with those issues?
Well, that is where the select committees come into play, because you have the select committees in the national sphere as well as in the NCOP. Now those committees need to call those officials, and we will be doing that also. The MMCs also, they'll need to come and answer to us to say, why weren't you there? What is your view about this particular project? We will interrogate every project that we went out and saw, because what we found there in many cases that the city did not have a beneficiary list. Who will benefit from those homes once they are built? Now, when houses are built, people that are living nearby will just want to go and invade those houses and take over. Now, if you don't have proper beneficiary list that has been done in a very transparent manner, where you take the local community on board, because on the sites that we went to, the development was taking place on a vacant piece of land, and next door to that was a huge informal settlement. Now, are the beneficiaries coming from that informal settlement, or are they coming from somewhere else? And if the local people are not taken on board, then there'll be chaos, and we don't want that to happen. Therefore, those sites need to be properly protected right until they are completed. Now, on one site, we heard that a lot of money has been spent. 61% of the budget was spent on the Dunoon site, doing the underground work, the stormwater drainage, the sewer, and so on. But the contractor doesn't want to put the top structure in terms of electricity because they are afraid that it will be stolen. Now, can you see how it stalls progress? Because they don't want to put the electricity in, which is required if you're going to start building homes. But that can't happen because it's going to be stolen. So those are the challenges we need to overcome, and that is where the select committees and the portfolio committees come on board to be able to interrogate those officials and ensure that there is progress.
And when will this the NCOP report then be going to those committees so that we can start seeing like this oversight work taking place? You know that Parliament's program does indicate that very soon, as soon as Parliament returns from the recess, and for instance, the National Assembly will be going out on oversight visits based on the current program before Parliament. So when will these committees be able to access some of the recommendations that would emanate from the reports of the NCOP?
Well, today we had a summarized version. We've been told by our scribes that by within 30 days, we will have a comprehensive report. And that report then, as I said, will be tabled. It'll be ATC'd. And it'll then be handed over to the chairperson of committees, and then he will then take that to his committees and divide up the work amongst the relevant committees so that it can be then followed through. So that is what we see happening in the next few weeks.
And now beyond this oversight, the NCOP has a role in ensuring support. So what practical interventions or policy reforms did the House resolve to champion to address the critical lack of capacity at municipal financial officers and managers that the Auditor General would have highlighted in its report? We know the concerns that have been raised by the Auditor General in relation to the state of the municipalities.
You know, Temenkosi, I'm sure you are aware that many of our councillors are not fully capacitated in terms of how they should read financial reports especially, as well as legislation. Now, I just had a very interesting discussion with a member of SALGA just as I was coming out of the house, and he said to me that they have programs that they are willing to share, training programs for councillors. And I said to him that we need to now bring to us so that we can then take SALGA on board to assist us in training councillors. Let councillors become aware of the programs that are available to them. Because if you find that councillors do not know legislation, if they do not know how to read their budgets, if they do not know how to respond to the AG's reports, how are they going to function? So we need to ensure that the councillors are capacitated, and that is a very critical thing if we want to ensure that we have effective service delivery and to ensure that municipalities function the way they should. So I will be ensuring. I'll be making sure that SALGA is brought on board, even when we are planning any other program such as this week's program. SALGA needs to be brought on board right at the beginning so that they also advise us in terms of how we go forward. Because SALGA has a very critical role to play when it comes to service delivery at local government level especially.
It's good to hear about the plans to train councillors, but if we look at where we are now in September of 2025, and we do know that local government elections are taking place next year, which is 2026, then is this training going to be for the current crop of councillors, or are you now planning for the next administration?
Well, look, I don't think that if we were to train councillors now, it will be a wasted exercise. Because if you empower people at any time, and you send them out there, whether they come back, in 2026 or not, they are still empowered. So, it'll be beneficial all around. But this is not going to be a once-off thing. Depending on the outcome of the elections next year, when a new crop of councillors come in, of course, we need to empower them also. So, SALGA is there to stay. So, we will be using SALGA's, training programs as we go forward. But it needs to start at some point. And I'm hoping that people will not be so focused on going out there and campaigning, that they wouldn't want to empower themselves. So I'm hoping that that can happen.
Now, one of the major themes related to the issue of debt owed to municipalities, especially by government departments. Now, what specific actionable proposal has emerged from this week's session to break this impasse and facilitate a sustainable intergovernmental relations?
Yeah, that was another very sore point that came out when we had our session on Tuesday. Municipalities are not able to provide essential services like water and electricity in many of our municipalities because of non-payment by not only the residents but also of certain industries that operate within their particular municipality, as well as government departments. And that is a very, very serious issue, because if government departments are not paying for services, how can we then motivate ordinary citizens who are living off meager incomes, especially those who are grant recipients and they are dependent on their grants? So government needs to set the pace. Government needs to set the example and pay for their services. Now, a very interesting thing is that the Minister of Finance has also said this, that if certain government departments are not paying their municipalities, they're going to top slice from their budgets before budgets are given to a particular entity. So by top slicing and then paying the municipality, that will actually address that issue to a great extent. But I'm not saying that it's going to eradicate the problem, because government departments that are using water services, that are using electricity, must be encouraged to pay. And otherwise many municipalities can collapse because they're not getting their payments
and not being able to pay ESCOM.
Exactly.
Now, provinces are constitutionally mandated to support and monitor local government. Now, based on the assessment that has been shared this week, is the NCOP satisfied with that provincial governments are fully living up to this responsibility? And what specific role will the NCOP now play in ensuring that they do?
Well, you will know that the NCOP has the authority to call in anybody to come and answer questions. Now, if we find that from this report, we find that municipalities and the provincial government is not doing what they are supposed to do in terms of providing services to our people, the NCOP has the authority to call them in and to come and answer. And that is what we will do. Once we've debated the report, we will then look at the way forward. And the way forward might be that we call in the mayor, that we call in certain MECs from the province to say, come and explain to us, come and answer to us in terms of why this is happening or why that is not happening. So, that is the option that is there for us, and it is there in our constitutional mandate that the NCOP can exercise that kind of authority, and we will do that. We will do that.
And know that based on the events of this week, reports have been developed. There would be some commitments or recommendations on those reports. So what is the NCOP's clear mechanism for tracking and publicly reporting on the implementation of those recommendations or commitments that would have been made this week?
Well, once we get the consolidated report, we will then look at what emanates from there, and we will identify critical areas that we can address immediately. Things like the issue of crime. We can call in the provincial commissioner and say, what are you doing about addressing this issue? What are you doing about safeguarding those particular sites? Now, in terms of going forward, as I said, we will then be able to call in MECs, relevant MECs, as well as councillors, the mayor, deputy mayor even, to say, come and explain to us as the NCOP. The select committees, they have that kind of authority also. They can call in the the executive mayor and say, explain to us what is going on. So only in that way, when we start interrogating these issues critically, not with the intention of finding fault. As the NCOP, we don't believe that we need to find fault with people. We want to be able to see how can we assist you. We have seen these log jams. We've seen that certain projects have stalled. Let's see how we can assist you. Now, if local government is saying to us, look, we are not getting cooperation from the provincial government, then we will go to the ministers over there, at least the MECs, and say, but how can you assist? So in that way, we will be providing a supportive role rather than, going there with a big stick and trying to, get things done in that way, but to support and to provide assistance and clear up those log jams so that those projects can be unlocked and the people can benefit.
Now we've seen this persistent service delivery protests across the country, which of course would have led to public trust being very low. Now, what message of assurance can you offer to South Africans today, especially following the adjournment of this week, regarding the NCOP's concrete plan to help rebuild that trust and ensure their constitutional rights are met?
Tamankosi, you're absolutely correct. Public trust is at all-time low. If you look at across the country, there are service delivery protests happening all over the place. And that is something that is so unfortunate. It shouldn't be the case. Because to find that people are crying out for a basic thing like water, that is something that really should not be happening. Now, as the NCOP, we want to ensure that people receive those basic services. And that takes us back to the issue that we just spoke about. Those that are using services must pay for it. Now, if huge companies as well as provincial governments and municipalities are not paying for their services, you'll find that municipalities are going to collapse. And once that happens, then you're going to have chaos across the country. Now, we need to ensure that that doesn't happen. So going forward, we will ensure that the three spheres of government is called to account. And the NCOP, as I said, has that kind of authority, and we will be doing that. But we firstly need to look at this report, see exactly what comes out of there. I don't want to jump the gun and say, look, I'm going to assure you that this is going to happen and that is going to happen, because we need to evaluate the outcomes of this past week. And as I said right at the beginning, this was a real eye-opener for us to see exactly the challenges out there. There were places that we went to where we found huge heaps of rubbish just piled there. And we were asking, but why isn't this thing being cleared? And immediately we will want to point fingers to the municipality. But the responses that we got is that the bin trucks are not allowed to come in here until you pay extortion money. Now, that is unacceptable. How do you expect the municipality to go in there and clear the dirt out of those areas when their lives are at threat? Now, those are the type of things that we need to unlock. We need to eradicate that sort of thing, so that municipal officials will also be able to do their work. Even the police must be able to do their work without fear. But we find that is not the case in many of these areas. I mean, we're hearing of shootings that are taking place almost every day.
Did you have an opportunity to maybe ask or engage with citizens on the role that they themselves play in ensuring that they keep their spaces clean?
Well, to the sites that we visited, we were able to engage with some of the citizens that came out to talk to us. And they said, look, what do we do with the dirt that comes out of our homes? Where do we put it? So they put it on the street, hoping that the municipality will clear it. But unfortunately, the municipality cannot send the officials in there because of fear. Now, it's a two-edged sword, really. The people want the dirt to be cleared, but yet extortionists that probably even live within those communities are threatening the lives of the municipal workers. So, we need to address that issue of crime. And I said that right at the beginning. The issue of crime, extortion, and criminality is extremely serious.
Chair, before I let you go, looking ahead to the next 6 months, what would you consider a measurable sign that this local government week 2025 was a true success and a genuine turning point for cooperative governance in South Africa, especially for someone that's sitting in all pain in Tata at Ultra City Extension, who has been without water for the last 5 years? What message can you give to that person?
Well, look, as I said before, I cannot give assurances of what's going to happen in Mthatha, right? But as the National Council of Provinces, we have an oversight role across the country. So if we find that municipalities are failing in a particular area, we have the Minister of COCTA, who we can approach. We have other government departments that we can call in to say, what are you doing in that particular space? Why is it that water is not being served, provided to that particular community? Those are the kind of interventions that we can undertake. But what is important is that all government departments need to ensure that they fulfill their mandates in terms of delivering to the people of our country. Very often we know that budgets are not sufficient, but when you have a certain amount that you can spend, you need to ensure that your budget is used effectively so that the people of our country benefit, especially when it comes to essential services, water, electricity, housing. That is crucial. And those government departments must make sure that their budgets are utilized towards giving dignity to our people.
Chairperson, I'd like to thank you, Deputy Chair. I'd like to thank you very much for taking time off your busy schedule to come and be with Parliament TV today, following this a very busy week of Local Government Week 2025. We thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity always.
Thank you so much. And that was the Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Mr. Les Govender, talking to us here at Parliament TV and sharing some insights on the proceedings of this week. You are still watching Parliament TV. Please stay tuned.
Following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better. Parliament TV, channel 408 on DSTV.
South Africa's Parliament will proudly host the 11th G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit, known as the P20, bringing together leaders from G20 national parliaments to shape global policies and reinforce parliamentary oversight in international decision-making. As the first African country to lead the P20, South Africa's Parliament is championing Africa's active participation in global governance and economic policymaking, ensuring the continent is a driving force in shaping the future we want. Parliament will play a critical oversight role, ensuring that South Africa's commitments as G20 president translate into real economic growth, job creation, and social development. The P20 summit will embed African perspectives in global decision-making, ensuring that policies on trade, technology, and governance reflect the continent's needs and aspirations. Parliament is committed to fostering international collaboration for a better, more just world. Your Parliament, your voice, your future.
And there you have it. The National Council of Provinces has officially adjourned the 2025 installment of the Local Government Week. The real gavel has come down, but the real work begins now.
Absolutely, Tsepo. The report has been adopted and the resolutions are clear. The challenge is no longer about identifying the problems which were laid bare this week, but about implementing the solutions. The eyes of the nation will now be on the NCOP's committees to see how they exercise their oversight in the coming months.
Now, it's been a week of stark realities, but also of renewed commitment. From the oversight visit to the committee deliberations, the message was consistent. The people must come first.
And that's the ultimate takeaway. We want to thank you, our viewers, for engaging with this critical work of Parliament. The conversation doesn't end here, so keep the discussion going using the hashtag LGW2025.
And from ourselves here, the team behind the scenes, right here at Parliament TV, Libito Laka Ketsepo More.
Ndinguthembi Nkosi Ngoma. And thank you very much for your time, and it's goodbye.
Bye-bye.
This book, our Constitution, protects our society and empowers us to govern. The protea leaves are us, the people, who freely elect our voices in Parliament. The drum calls the people of Parliament, through whom we govern together. And the sun is our country, healing our past, improving our lives, and energizing our potential. Together, our Constitution, our people, our Parliament, and our country are building our great South African nation. Parliament TV, Channel 408 on DSTV.